My son sent me the file like it was a joke. One text. No greeting. No context. Just, "You should listen to this." There was an audio attachment under it. Gray bubble. Little arrow. Waiting. I didn't know what it was. I didn't ask. I pressed play. At first it was noise. A chair scraping. Someone clearing their throat. Then the laugh. My son's laugh. Loose. Comfortable. And then my husband's voice slid in right after. Low and easy. Like he was agreeing with the weather. "She really thinks we care about her. All we care about is her money." They laughed. Both of them. Not nervous. Not rushed. Like this was a line they'd used before. I stopped the audio. The phone went quiet. I realized the next move mattered more than the last 10 years combined. I stared at the screen, waiting for something else to load. It didn't. I replayed it once. I know. Bad choice. But I needed to hear if I'd imagined it. I hadn't. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. I felt sort of hollow, like when you miss a step and your stomach drops, but your body hasn't caught up yet. I typed back one line. Nothing dramatic. No questions, no accusations, just enough to let him know I'd heard it. I hit send before I could rethink it. I didn't add an emoji, I didn't soften it my day. I didn't explain. For a second. I almost walked down the hall to ask my husband what the hell that was. I stayed where I was. Sometimes you wait. Sometimes waiting tells you more than yelling. I realized the next move mattered more than the last 10 years combined. My name is Evelyn Ashcroft. I've been paying for things quietly for a long time. Bills, gaps, emergencies that never seemed to end. I told myself it was temporary. I tell myself a lot of things. The phone buzzed again. Not from him, from the bank app, a routine alert. I watched it pop up and disappear. I didn't confront anyone that night. I didn't cry. I didn't sleep much either. I just kept thinking about why my own son would hand me something like that, and what he thought I was going to do with it. It didn't start big. That's the part people never get. My son would call and talk fast. "Mom, I'm short this month. Just this once." He always added that part. Just this once. I'd ask how much. He'd name a number like it was nothing. Rent. Car repair. Some charge he didn't recognize but needed gone before morning. I'd move the money and tell myself it was temporary. Everything sounds harmless when you label it temporary. A few months later, the calls stopped sounding embarrassed. "Can you cover this?" Not please. Not sorry. Just logistics. One night at dinner, my husband pushed his plate away and glanced at my phone lighting up again. "He asks you a lot," he muttered. I shrugged. "He's figuring things out." That was my favorite lie. It kept things quiet. Another time, my husband leaned against the counter and lowered his voice. "You've transferred almost $30,000 this year." I laughed like he was exaggerating. "You're counting now." He didn't laugh back. The worst part is how normal it all felt. I didn't feel generous, I felt necessary. That's different. Being needed gives you a job. Jobs don't complain. My son started treating it like a system. "I'll pay you back when things settle." They never settled. Something always came up right before they did. I remember one morning checking my account and seeing 3 withdrawals lined up. Neat as bullets. Groceries. Insurance. His phone bill. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Then I closed it and went to work. I didn't want praise. I didn't want gratitude. I wanted it to stop being assumed. That line matters, because once it's assumed, it's not help anymore. It's expectation. That night, my husband watched me scroll through transfers and didn't interrupt. The silence felt heavier than arguing. I didn't know then that he was counting too, just not the same way I was. I didn't play the recording again, not out loud. It kept replaying on its own anyway. My son's voice came back first. Easy, relaxed, like he was stretched out somewhere, ankles crossed, already bored with the conversation. He talked the way he always does when he thinks he's ahead. No rush, no checking himself. She'll handle it. He'd laughed. She always does. That part tracked. I hated that it did. What didn't sit right was my husband. He agreed. On paper. Tone low, careful. Like every word had been placed, not tossed. He didn't interrupt my son. He didn't build on the joke either, just enough encouragement to keep it going. Makes life simpler, he added at one point. Simpler. Not funnier, not smarter. Simpler. The laugh that followed wasn't shared. My son went loud. Confident, already enjoying himself. My husband's came half a beat later. Short, controlled. Like a box being checked. I've been married to that man for over 30 years. I know when he's acting tired. I know when he's irritated. I know when he's lying to me. This didn't sound like lying. It sounded like someone keeping score. I stood there holding the phone, thumb hovering over the screen, listening in my head instead of my ears. The fridge kicked on with a dull hum. That sound grounded me more than it should have. Here's the thing. If my husband really believed what he'd said, there would have been comfort in his voice, ownership. He would have leaned into it. He didn't. He stayed measured, almost restrained. I hate that I noticed that before I noticed how much it hurt. It tells you something about the shape of a marriage, doesn't it? I didn't confront him. I didn't confront anyone. I let the doubt sit there, sharp and quiet. Doubt can be useful if you don't rush to kill it. I waited for the blow-up. That's what usually comes next in families like ours. Raised voices. Denials. Someone slamming a door to prove they care. None of that happened. My husband moved through the morning like everything was normal. Coffee. Keys. A quick comment about traffic. He didn't look at me longer than necessary. He didn't ask if I'd slept. He didn't explain anything. That silence felt deliberate. I tried once. Just once. You get home late last night. He nodded. Dinner ran long, that was it. No follow-up, no apology, no defense. My son filled the space instead. He texted before noon. Hey, did you listen? A minute later, Mom. I didn't answer. I set the phone face down and let it buzz itself tired. When I finally checked again, his tone had shifted. Less playful. Sharper around the edges. You okay? Then, we should talk. That word, should, it's always a warning. At dinner, my husband asked me to pass the salt like nothing was wrong. The normalcy pressed in on me. I almost broke. I almost snapped something ugly just to force a reaction. Instead, my son called. I put it on speaker without thinking. You gonna ignore me now? My husband didn't flinch, didn't interrupt. He listened. That silence stretched again, thick and uncomfortable. I ended the call early. Too early. My son wasn't done talking. That was rude, he added, already annoyed. I watched my husband's face then. Still neutral, still careful, not defensive, not guilty looking either. Just contained. That kind of containment scared me more than anger ever could. I went to bed with my phone on the nightstand and my back turned to him. Sleep didn't come easy. Silence can feel like distance. And distance can start to look a lot like betrayal if you stare at it long enough. The truth came out on a Wednesday night. Not dramatic, no shouting, just tired honesty, which somehow hit harder. My husband waited until my phone buzzed again. He watched the screen light up, then looked at me. He's pushing. He murmured. I didn't answer. I didn't know what to give him yet. He's been doing this longer than you think. He added. His voice stayed low, careful, like he didn't want the walls involved. I turned. So you knew. I suspected. That word landed heavy. Not guilt, not innocence. Something in between. He leaned back in the chair. The money started lining up with his moods. Confident when it flowed. Sharp when it didn't. I felt stupid hearing that. Not because it wasn't true, because I hadn't wanted it to be. You let him talk like that, I muttered. I let him talk. He corrected. Because he only talks freely when he thinks he's winning. He reached for his phone and slid it across the table. Not ceremoniously, just flat. There were voice memos, dates, short clips, bet threads I hadn't seen. My son joking about timing, about pressure, about how I'd cave if he waited long enough. One message stood out. She'll fold. She always does. Dad gets it. I felt something shift then. Not relief, not anger, clarity, ugly, sharp clarity. He thinks we're predictable. My husband continued, thinks silence means agreement. Another buzz. My son again. You two being weird lately. Then, just saying. My husband didn't touch the phone, didn't reply. He just watched it vibrate. He's escalating, he noted, because he thinks we're still under control. I hated how calm he sounded. I hated that it made sense. So you waited, I whispered. I waited for proof that couldn't be explained away, even by habit. That stung. It should have. I nodded anyway. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing how comfortable my son had been, how safe he felt being cruel. People don't reveal that side unless they're sure nothing will happen. I picked up the phone and turned it face down. My hands were steady again. That scared me a little. I didn't cut anything that night. I know that's what people expect. Big move, clean break, drama. That's not how it went. I opened the banking app and scrolled. Slowly, line by line, transfers I barely remembered approving. Amounts that felt small when they left and heavy now that they were stacked together. Rent help. Insurance gaps? Just until next month. That phrase again and again, worn thin. My husband hovered nearby. Quiet. I'm not stopping it yet. I told him. He nodded. I know. No pushback, no relief either. I made a list. Not on paper. In my head. What I covered. How often. How fast I reacted when the message came in late at night with that familiar urgency. I noticed how many payments lined up right after my son checked in with a casual call, like clockwork. The shame crept in then. Not toward him, toward myself. I'd taught him this rhythm. I'd rewarded panic. I'd mistaken silence for peace. Another alert buzzed. I didn't open it. He'll notice eventually, my husband muttered. Let him, I replied. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Here's the part I don't love admitting. A piece of me hoped I was wrong. Hoped this was all a misunderstanding with receipts, that if I waited, something would explain itself. I stayed up late, counting without moving anything. Control doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's just refusing to react on someone else's timeline. I swear. That was the first quiet choice I'd made in years. I stared at my son's last text for a long time. Long enough for the screen to dim. Long enough to feel my chest tighten and then loosen again. I typed one line. Nothing else. No explanation. No tone markers. Just the words. I sent it before I could dress it up. The phone stayed quiet for almost 5 minutes. That told me more than any reply would have. Then it rang. Not mine. My husband's. He glanced at the screen and tilted it so I could see the name. Our son. He didn't answer right away. He tapped record first. I nodded. Once, my mouth felt dry, like pennies. He picked up. What's going on? Our son jumped in fast, too fast. Did you talk to her? My husband kept his voice neutral. About what? That message, but it's weird. She's being weird. I sat there. arms crossed, listening to the version of myself my son carried around, unstable, emotional, predictable. You told me she wouldn't push back. Our son continued. You said she'd cool off. My husband let the silence stretch. That was new. That silence made space. She always folds, our son added, irritation leaking through now. That's how this works. I closed my eyes, not from pain, from recognition. That's the sentence he thought was safe. That's the sentence he thought belonged only to him. My husband responded carefully. You're sure you didn't go too far? A laugh came through the speaker, short, dismissive. Too far. She needs reminding. That money's family money. Family money. I felt that land somewhere hard. The call ended a minute later, not with a goodbye, just a click. My husband lowered the phone. We didn't look at each other right away. That one line I sent did exactly what I hoped. It didn't scare him. It confused him. People talk more when they think they're still in control. I leaned back and let the quiet settle. Something had shifted. And he didn't know it yet. We didn't ambush him. That mattered to me. No traps in public. No audience. Just the three of us at the kitchen table. The same place he'd asked me for money more times than I could count. My son sat down already irritated. This is ridiculous. He started. You're both acting strange. My husband didn't argue. He unlocked his phone and placed it between us. We need you to listen. He told him. My son scoffed. I know what I said. You know part of it. My husband replied. He pressed play. Not the first recording. The later ones. The calls. The texts. My son's voice filled the space. Confident and careless. She'll cave. Mom needs pressure. Dad's on board. My son's posture changed. Shoulders tight. Jaw set. He tried to laugh it off. You recorded me, I listened. My husband answered. There's a difference. I spoke then. My voice sounded unfamiliar to my own ears. You talked about me like I was a system. Not a person. He looked at me. Finally. Really looked. You always help. He snapped. I didn't force you. That's what you told yourself. I replied. And that's what you told him. My husband inhaled slowly. I waited longer than I should have. My son jumped on that. So you admit it. You set this up. I waited. Because every time I questioned you, you changed. Softer. Smarter. I needed to hear you when you felt safe. That landed. I saw it in my son's face. The realization that his comfort had been the evidence. I felt something crack then. But it wasn't anger. It was grief, clean and sharp. You let me believe you agreed with him. I told my husband. He nodded. I did. And I'm sorry. Watching you get hurt was the cost. My son opened his mouth, then closed it. He scanned the table like there might be an exit hidden in the wood. So what now, he muttered. Now you don't get to rewrite this. I told him. You don't get to tell me I misunderstood. He didn't deny it. He couldn't. The words were his. The tone was his. The intent sat there, undeniable. The silence afterward wasn't peaceful. It was final. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear, and clarity. I'm learning is heavier than rage. Nothing collapsed all at once. That part surprised me. The first week, my son acted like this was temporary. He texted less. Short updates. Things are tight. I'm figuring it out. I didn't respond. My husband didn't either. Silence became the only boundary we hadn't used before. By the second week, the tone shifted. The landlord's being difficult. My card got declined. No greeting anymore. Just problems dropped like parcels at a closed door. I watched it happen from a distance I hadn't allowed myself before. His life didn't explode. It thinned. That was worse. The noise faded. The confidence drained out slowly, like air from a tire you keep pretending is fine. A friend of his called me once. A woman I'd met maybe twice at birthdays. He's stressed. She offered. I answered evenly. I know. That was it. She didn't call again. Another week passed. My son tried a different angle. You don't have to agree with how I talked, he wrote. But cutting me off feels extreme. Extreme. As if it were sudden, like this hadn't been years in the making. I didn't correct him. Correction would have kept me in the role. The fixer, the explainer. I stayed quiet. My husband asked one night, "Are you okay with this?" I nodded. Then I paused. I'm okay not rescuing him. He didn't argue. He looked tired too. That felt honest. By the 4th week, the messages stopped coming daily. Then weekly. Gaps stretched. I heard through someone else that he'd sold his car, that friends stopped answering his calls. No one stepped in. No replacement account appeared. I noticed something else. My phone felt lighter. Not physically, mentally. Fewer alerts. Fewer small emergencies disguised as connection. One night, he sent a final message. I didn't think you'd actually let this happen. I read it once. I didn't reply. The backfire wasn't loud. It didn't punish him in public. It just removed the net he'd mistaken for the ground. And once it was gone, there was nothing underneath to catch him. The house didn't change. That's what surprised me. Same table, same chairs, same quiet mornings. What changed was how honest the silence felt. My husband broke it first. I should have stepped in sooner. I nodded. You waited for proof. I waited because I was afraid you'd protect him. He admitted. He wasn't wrong. That truth sat between us, heavy but clean. We didn't promise anything dramatic after that. No speeches about healing. Just smaller things. He asked before assuming. I stopped covering gaps without explaining why. The marriage stayed. Not shiny, not heroic, just real. Our son didn't come back. Weeks passed, then months. No apology, no explosion, just absence. I learned how loud absence can be when it's chosen. Here's the part I want to say out loud, because pretending otherwise kept me stuck for years. Helping someone doesn't mean handing them your spine. Love doesn't survive when it's paid for on demand. Sometimes the most honest thing you can do is stop cushioning the fall and let reality do its job. I had to learn that boundaries aren't punishments, they're information. They tell people where you end. I spent decades blurring that line and calling it kindness. It wasn't. It was fear with better manners. One evening, my husband asked, "Do you miss him?" "I miss who I thought he was." I replied, "That felt accurate. I sleep better now." Not perfectly, better. My phone stays quiet most nights. When it buzzes, it's usually someone who doesn't need saving. If this story hit close to home, stay with me, tap like, leave a comment. Subscribe if you want more real stories like this. I'm here to say the things we're taught to swallow. I didn't get my son back. I got myself. And that trade, for now, is one I'm living with.